Now, we talk a lot here on Bloomberg about the big companies, the 500 biggest, in fact, that drive the equity markets. But if you're looking at employment, it all comes down to small business. In recent years, firms with fewer than 500 employees created nearly 80% of the net new jobs. There were more than 27 million small businesses in 2007. So which of them are the most successful? Inc. magazine covers small business and entrepreneurship. It's out with the annual Inc. 500 list of the top small businesses in the country. And with me now for a look at the big winners on this list, Inc.com senior editor Rod Kurtz.
Good morning, Scarlett.
Good morning.
A little bit of good economic news.
Yes, for a change.
Hot off the presses here for you, so here you go.
Fantastic, and that's mine to keep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, you do this issue a lot. Every year, in fact, and a lot, of course, has changed since the last list. So how much is the financial crisis and recession hurting the companies on your list?
Well, we're seeing flashes of it, but there's actually a lot of reasons to be optimistic. First of all, 2/3 of the CEOs on the list that we survey say they're optimistic about the economy, so that's great to see. They are the ones hiring, as you point out. You look at aggregate revenue of the list, and we're talking about over $18 billion, which is actually up from just over $13 billion last year. Median growth has dropped a bit. It's about 880%, which is still a pretty good problem to have for these companies. So things are looking pretty good, and I think we're seeing in the healthcare, government services sectors, these are performing very strong.
Okay, let's get to that in a minute. But in the meantime, what are these small business executives telling you in terms of their biggest concerns, their biggest problems right now?
They're still worried about getting money, I think, for a lot of small businesses. And again, you have to keep in mind there's not that much small about small businesses. The biggest company on the list doing over $2 billion in revenue, so they're still pretty big. They're having a little trouble getting money, but the interesting thing we're seeing is that a lot of them did business with community banks and credit unions that weren't swept up in a lot of the mess that we've seen over the past year. So they do have a good lifeline with their creditors and with their bankers. So it's a little bit of a concern, but they seem to be having a slightly easier time of it.
Okay, well, tell us about the company that came out on top this year.
Sure, nearly 20,000% in revenue growth. This is over a 3-year period, so it's a staggering number. Northern Capital Insurance, it's a Florida-based insurer, and essentially I think they were founded in 2002 or 2003, so these are all pretty young companies. They came in, they saw that the Florida market was a mess. A lot of the bigger insurance companies were exiting because of all the hurricanes. They saw opportunity like so many great entrepreneurs do.
And that's something that big companies often do, back out when they see a litany of legal problems.
Entrepreneurs are risk takers. Like we said, they're optimistic, and they look for the cracks. They go against the grain. They find the opportunity.
Now, you mentioned a lot of companies in the healthcare and government area. What's behind that?
Well, you see Washington, D.C., I think for the 7th consecutive year was the top metro area. And the reason for that is government services, companies that do business with Uncle Sam. He's a pretty good customer. And you have to keep in mind, these numbers are going through the end of 2008. So even all these spending that the Obama administration has been putting together, that's not even really registering here. So we're already seeing it as the top employment sector, and it finishes in the top 5 in a number of other industry categories. It's only poised for bigger growth. Again, healthcare also very strong. And we're expecting to see, a lot of companies out there, a lot of companies on this list are watching very closely at what the administration is planning to do and what Congress is planning with health care.
So big potential role going forward.
Yeah, we're seeing that they're already leading categories, and we expect on next year's list they're going to be even bigger.
Now, we showed the list earlier of all the companies, the top 5 companies, in fact, on your list. How many of these small, successful businesses end up going public?
We're seeing more and more. The IPO market last year obviously wasn't so great. We've already seen at least a couple companies on the list that are profiled this year have already filed or gone public. One of the interesting ones is actually Friend Finder Networks, which is the publisher of Penthouse. So in a down economy, porn always does well. So we are seeing another online education company as well, and I think the web is certainly a common denominator for a lot of these companies. It's lowered their costs. It makes doing business a lot cheaper, a lot easier, and more efficient.
Okay, great. Thank you. Something to watch out for.
Yeah.
We've been speaking with Inc.com's Rod Kurtz. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.